Everywhere GBS.
And good morning once again. Welcome to GBS Morning Extra. As I told you earlier, today I'm going to be joined by a guest who is going to help us discuss Kenya's preparedness on handling the COVID-19 case. My guest this morning is the Secretary General of the Kenya Private University Students Association, Ishmael H. Abdi, and Ishmael also is the current president of the Students' Union at the Mount Kenya University Law Campus in Law School in Parklands. Ishmael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Timothy.
Ishmael, the discussion that we're going to have today is very critical. We saw yesterday the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Mercy Mwangangi, say that the government stood by its earlier projection that at least 10,000 cases by the end of the month of April and 5,000 by mid-April. These are projections by the government, and she also warned that there possibly will be a strain on health facilities in the coming days in handling these issues of COVID-19, and that mild cases or mild symptoms will have to be handled from home and not in health facilities like it's happening right now, where we see people being put under quarantine. This comes at the backdrop of what the president actually did impose the other day, cessation of Nairobi, Kilifi, Mombasa, and Kwale counties, a move which has not augured well with many Kenyans. Abdi, what is your take, first and foremost, on the decision by the president to secede these counties and generally on the 5 to 7 p.m. curfew?
Thank you, Timothy, for hosting me again.
Karibu.
First of all, let me congratulate the coordination that is happening at the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
The coordination is good at all because up to date, the ministry is really updating Kenyans on what is happening. Mm-hmm. Two, on the decision of the president to make sure that the counties like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kwale, and Kilifi, like there's a curfew in a certain time. It's because of the cases. Like the ministry is kind of tracing the people who have been affected in those counties.
Yes.
And their cases are kind of more different compared to the other counties. Mm-hmm. And the only way we can manage this pandemic is to make sure that whenever we trace an individual, we make sure that we can trace even the people that he or she interacted with. Oh. Like now, in the case of Kilifi deputy governor.
Yes.
So that was a serious case. He's a public figure. He came from Germany. After that, he interacted with so many wananchi. So the government was to move so fast to make sure that they can trace all the people that he met with. So I think the move is good, and I'm telling Kenyans to be ready for what the ministry is saying. Mm-hmm. Let us behave well. Let us be ready, because this thing is a real thing. You can see from the world developed countries, they are being strained. So it is something that is real. So I'm supporting what the government is doing.
Sure. And Abdi, I was having a conversation earlier with a friend of mine. I'm sure you know him, Sharif Sirikal. Sharif Sirikal wrote me a message on the topic, and his suggestion is that the Mandera cases will complicate a lot of things, for sure, owing to the Somalis' nature. They are large families. After those two people left Kilifi, they passed through Eastleigh and, you know, the houses that they visited there, and then they took a bus from there. Imagine the 60 passengers on the bus, he continues to say, with stopovers in Mwingi, Garissa, Wajir. Imagine the number of people exposed on the way, how the masses have little knowledge of the virus since the majority are uneducated. Now, this is a case where in Mandera, the first two cases that were reported in Mandera County actually were traced way back to Kilifi, where they first came into the country after, you know, coming from Europe, and, you know, tracing them all the way to Eastleigh and then all the way down to Garissa. How serious is this situation? And for those people who are not obeying the self-quarantine, the 14-day self-quarantine imposed by the government?
Okay, Sirkal is a good friend of mine. I'm happy that he's watching.
Yes.
He's among the young leaders from Mandera County, and I wish him all the best in his leadership.
Sure.
The issue of Mandera is a kind of unique because, first of all, the nature of the Somali people, the interaction. Somali people are one of the communities that interact a lot.
Yes.
Whereby they and mostly the interaction is shaking hands, hugging each other. So there is that so much connection, and these two people being students from KMTC Kilifi, passing Mombasa, coming to Eastleigh, sleeping in a hotel, through Garissa. I'm told somewhere in a place called Lalei in Wajir, the bus was stopped because of the curfew. Then it proceeded. So you can imagine the contact of the contact.
Sure.
Now, leave about the contact. Now talk about the entire thing being a new thing to the counties.
Sure.
The fear that it created to the people, especially in the counties that these two victims passed.
Yes.
And also the preparedness of the county government of Mandera. I saw the governor the other day showing around 7 beds, ICU beds.
Yeah.
That shows it is a kind of a list preparation, and the funny part is when their samples were not tested in Mandera, it was brought to Nairobi.
Yeah, it still have to be brought all the way to Nairobi.
You can imagine that situation. So you can imagine that situation. So I think the northern counties are not prepared for whatever is happening. The same way the country is not prepared. You have seen Kenyans not even following the measures that the government has put in place. So it is so unique. Just like any other cases, we talk of insecurity, we talk of poverty and everything. So it is so unique in the northern Kenya.
Someone also had the opinion that the Kenyan government, as much, you know, all the time when this thing was still in Wuhan, China, you know, making its way and snaking its way all through to enter into Kenya, it took about 2.5 to 3 months. Yet someone was of the opinion that the Kenyan government did not create enough public awareness on the case, because should they have created enough public awareness, then the public would be more aware of how to handle the situation.
Sure. We can also say that the government didn't play its role in making sure that it gives the awareness. But also, Timothy, remember, it is an African nature. For us, we wait and see. So when this thing was in Wuhan, we were like, you know what, this thing is not coming to Africa. And our case is just the same as the other African countries. So the first day our first case was reported, that is now the time Kenyans were like, hey, the pandemic is in the country, just like any other country, especially for East Africa. No country was prepared. It is now that we are trying. In fact, even in the region, we are we are the country that is kind of trying. You can see the coordination in our ministry. You can see the government has already moved. The president has already made sure that he has talked to the nation. The central bank has given us like 7.5 billion to make sure that we can cope the pandemic.
And also yesterday we saw the multi-agency team that is headed by the DPP also contribute another 2 billion Kenya shillings into the emergency fund.
Yes. That is a good move that will give our health practitioners and the teams on the ground. It will give them energy to make sure that they work for us, because what is needed now is money. Money is needed because talk of the masks. The other time I was watching Al Jazeera, and there is a shortage of masks in the world.
Yes.
But you can see as the local manufacturers are coming out clearly, like the Kitui textile, and they are telling the country, we are ready. We are ready to do our local things. We are ready. So, and I'm told even there is a manufacturer again who is planning to come up with ventilators. So I think we are trying, and the money that the central bank and the DPP office has given to the Ministry of Health and the government, I think that money will be used well, and from there we will move well as we pray, because this is a worldwide challenge which every country is fighting. In fact, at this point, you cannot cry to any country to help you. So, because this thing is beyond everyone. You have seen a state like New York being paralyzed.
Sure.
The governor is helpless. So, it is something serious.
Well, actually, yesterday we had this news where the U.S. have actually, the state of New York actually, they say that the number of the dead has surpassed, the capacity of the morgues there, and they're trying to find alternative places to bury their dead in some island near the U.S.
True.
But then, Abdi, as we speak about this, there's something also I would like us, two things I would like to hear your opinion on. You mentioned something about the masks. Of course, there are the medically proven masks, that are also recommended. But the other day we had the president say that they will allow, and also they are encouraging, even, just masks made out of normal fabric. This is a step also towards trying to curb the situation. But also, as you address that, there's also the issue of a country like South Korea, which has successfully managed to, contain this situation. And they say that, the ingredients to their secret is transparency, and also the immediate response that they gave to the situation when it struck. Let's start with the issue of the masks. Masks that people are using right now, some people are using homemade masks, but these homemade masks, they're not very safe. They're not really, medically proven to help prevent the situation, are they?
I think that is the challenge that we're having. But now, desperate times call for desperate measures.
Sure.
So everyone is trying. Talk about Mama Mboga who earns 100 bob daily.
Yes.
And the mask is, let's say, one mask, the last time I checked was 150 shillings. So
sure.
You can see the mathematics is not adding up.
Yeah.
I think with the president welcoming our local manufacturers to come in and help, I'm very sure that the mask will be available. And working, and the other time the minister was saying he's ready to work. They were with the trade minister, CS, and also the also the officials from KEBS to make sure that the masks are the recommended one by World Health Organization.
Yes.
Because if we take a measure which is again aiding on the suffering, so it will not be a measure. It will be like we are not getting the solution.
Yes.
But I'm very happy that KEBS will make sure that whatever it is being produced by our manufacturers will be tested, and will be using that. And according to Korea, North Korea, I think this war will not be. It will be it will take democratic countries time to understand whatever it is going, because you see, like citizens are being told, you have to do this. The government is this is the directive of the government, but some citizens are not ready to follow that. But in dictator countries like North Korea, like it is serious thing. If you are not doing the right thing, then the government is ready to deal with you. So again, it is a matter of democracy and dictator countries, whereby dictator countries will always win this war.
Sure. And Ismail, I beg your pardon, the Korea I was referring to here is the South Korea. South Korea has actually been hailed for its, speed in curbing the situation. And also, right now, as we speak, over 80 countries, including the United States of America, Canada, and the UK, are actually reaching out to South Korea for their expertise, especially their test kits. They're said to be more accurate than the ones coming from China and the ones being produced elsewhere. But then the point here is, in a country like South Korea, the citizens of the country reciprocated to the instructions that the government gave, but also the government was very articulate and very transparent in its communication. Right now, when you listen to many people, people still have a lot of doubts. You mentioned earlier, Africans or Kenyans, they have the habit of let's wait and see. But then these citizens of South Korea, particularly, when they heard from the government, they followed government instructions, and then it was really easy for the public and the government together in unison to try to curb, the spread of the disease.
I think, Timothy, the most important thing in this virus is the culture of following what you are being told by your government, the culture of following what the directive that the medical practitioners are giving,
Yes.
the culture of listening. So for us Kenyans, as I told you, whenever something, the ministry is pushing for something, we are in Twitter saying a different thing. And social media is a powerful thing. So, and also on the issue of kids, I think there's been an issue. I think it is a supremacy battle, especially to the developed countries, and more so China.
Yes.
China is being seen as a country that has really worked on this thing, though it was it before, but it's kind of coming to make sure that they can contain everything that is going on.
Yes.
You have seen one city is the first city, I think, in the world whereby business is now officially open. They're monitoring whatever is going on. So I think the reason why South Korea is winning is because of the culture of listening what you are being told, following the measures strictly. And also, I think they have experts when it comes to health matters.
Yes.
Considering that they're a country that they have been having a problem with North Korea, but at the same time, they have been getting a lot of support from the Western countries, South Korea, because of North Korea. So I think financially and everything, they are a stable country. And I think the only secret that they have gotten is to follow the measures that the government has put in place.
Sure. And, looking at the situation, Abdi, right now, as we speak, the country, I would say, partially on a lockdown, because, lockdown Nairobi, lockdown Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, that's a partial lockdown, if I may call it that. Business is affected. How are people coping? I mean, when you go, I think it's you who was telling me that Kenya is doing very poorly in terms of, working at home, because I think, why is this so, in your opinion?
Okay, I think, Timothy, this thing has really affected the world economy, because when you see the international market and everything, talk about even the exchange in our country, like the entire economy aspect is down as we talk.
Yes.
Because every country is focusing on how it will save its citizen against the virus.
Yes.
And the other day, I think the survey that was out was Kenya is leading in job disruption with 86% in Africa. That shows that, Kenyans, we are people that, we have to work from office. Mamboga has to go to a place of work and sell things. Yeah. People working for even, and if you want to know that we are not ready, even people working for big corporations,
yes,
they can't work at home because the environment is new. There's an aspect of being monitored. There is a lot of things. So economy is bad, and again, you can see the people who used to help us, especially the Western countries. We used to get a lot of funds from the World Bank, talk of the World Bank, talk of International Monetary Fund and all those bodies. But for now, which country can be helped? So that is the logic behind all this. So as a country, I think Kenyans, it is that time the president was saying that, the other time the CS for health. Taikagwe was saying, let us prepare ourselves for the worst. So the worst means health-wise, economical wise, and even social wise, because there is a lot of, this is the time that people, all the family is at home, so even the issue of behavior, the issue of handling the kids and everything. So this is a trying moment for Kenya, but inshallah we will overcome. We are a strong country with all the coordination and everything. Our leaders, the people, everyone is kind of making sure that we overcome this, but the most important thing is to follow the measures. Yeah.
Maybe I'd just like to add on to another point, and maybe would like to draw your view also on the same. You mentioned about Kenya leading in Africa with more than 80% on job disruptions. What about school? I mean, kids are still at home. We are trying the online thing, but then the Google Online, not all parents can be able to access Google Online. Public schools are trying to do radio, which is not very successful. Still, other schools are trying WhatsApping, you know, parents, but it's a back and forth thing. What do you make of the education system, and you yourself being a student at the university?
Okay, I think the education sector is one of the most sectors that has been affected, because you can imagine nursery students, nursery kids, primary, secondary, and even university students. Everyone has gone home. You can imagine the stuff that those institutions had. Everyone is at home. So the entire system has been disrupted. Talk of the candidates for the Form 4 who are to sit for the exam. So there is a lot of disruption. University students, I'm very happy that some universities, including Mount Kenya University, my university, they have gone online, and it is really working. It is really working, though, you know, handling a lot of students also is an issue. So the entire thing has been disrupted, and parents also, they are going through a lot of time, because some of them used to take their kids to secondary school, whereby you can take your student for and is a boarding student. So the only time you're going to pick him or her is when the school is being closed.
Sure.
But now you have to make sure that he is well, is at home, and at the same time you have to look for money to make sure that you sustain the family. Then the issue of tax, it is still there. Every Kenyan is paying tax. Then the issue of rent, it is still there. So I think the government, I think they're working on something. For me, I thought the members of the parliament will come back with the Senate also, because the other time we saw the two speakers of the two houses saying that, you know, soon we'll have a sitting. For me, I thought they will come and sit down and come up with laws, especially to suspend rent for some few months, because if this didn't continue, because the trend now is every day when the Ministry of Health is briefing this country, there are new cases, which means the spread is going on and on.
Yeah,
and
it
the
is
ministry
still
has
going on.
not yet started testing people in masses. So again, that is another thing that it will bring a lot of issues, especially on the new cases. So I think the country has, like, we have to be prepared for a lot of things, Timothy, and also make sure that the culture is there. So I was even wondering the other day when I was told the two houses, they will not have a sitting. So I don't know how money will be allocated again to the Ministry of Health without approval of the Parliament.
Is there a law that bars them from working, you know, online? Me and you right now, we are talking, we are both in Nairobi, but then we're having a meeting, and our viewers are also joining us on the same and different platforms. Actually, one of our viewers who is doing it right now on Facebook, called Jairus Mukiwana. Jairus Mukiwana is saying, Kenya is not ready. What is going on is so terrifying people all the time. Abdi, these are the views of Kenyans who are watching us this morning. They're saying Kenya is not prepared to handle the COVID-19. You say that so far, the way the government is handling the situation, you feel somehow comfortable. What do you think about this?
True. Okay. We can say the country is not prepared, and at the same time, we are trying. Compared to other African countries, we are trying.
Yes.
I'm not talking as a capacity of anyone who is working at the
Definitely,
government
but
office,
your view, that's your view. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But giving my view is that you have seen how, I think why the viewer is talking about terrification, I think it is because of what happened, especially on the curfew, whereby there was a lot of police brutality.
Yes.
So I think at that time, that is the time most Kenyans were like, then there is a problem, because if our officers cannot even make sure that they are following the right things, if they are ready to beat people because they were kind of showing how they were enjoying on how to beat people. But on the other side, I'm talking about the coordination of the Ministry of Health.
Sure.
This is something that came as a new thing to us, and just like any other African country, because if you see so many big countries straining, talk of Italy, talk of Spain, talk of the US, UK. So what we are doing currently is we are trying, but again, the most important thing is Kenyans to follow the measures and the directive that they are talking. Make sure that you sanitize, you wash your hands, social distance, just do the necessary things, because as we talk up to date, there is little being done by Kenyans. Okay, I may say that a lot of them are trying, but again, half of them, like they don't even think that this thing is happening. Talk of the northern counties, people are still shaking hands, people are still talking, there are still small compunges, a lot of things. So I think it is high time we follow the directives. But the way I see the coordination of the ministry, and let us appreciate some of these things, how the minister, especially the CS Kagwe, this is a leader that even can pass the information to the people.
Sure.
You can see his communication skills. So you can imagine if we had a CS who cannot even communicate. So this is someone, and their coordination. You can see the director, Dr. Ahmad, the CS, Mercy, Dr. Mercy. So this is a coordination they are trying. Also, leave about them. There is these other teams that are on the ground, those in the isolation centers, those in the quarantine places, testing those ones. The other people who are making their tracing, all this. So it is a good coordination, but now they are lacking the support from Kenyans. Let us say the truth. The support that is being lacked currently is support from the Kenyans. Yes.
Abdi, talking about the support from Kenyans to the government, the other day after the president made the grand announcement about the cessation of Nairobi, Kilifi, Mombasa, and Kwale, and also announced a new raft of other measures, he also announced some cash that was supposed to go to artists, and it caused an outrage. Why are Kenyans so pissed off with such things? And what's your take on that? Do you think that the president overreacted or misplaced priorities, as some Kenyans are trying to put it?
For sure, up to now, I don't know the reason behind the allocation of 100 million to artists, because
he said it is for our artists to entertain us during this trying moment.
We are at the middle of crisis, whereby there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of disruption on the normal lives of so many Kenyans. So I think the issue of music is a misplaced priority. I don't know how the advisors to the president come up with that, but it is something that I really don't know how it works, because I don't see any importance on that, because Kenyans currently, it is the issue of making sure that they sustain their families, the issue of the families in the slums. In case of a lockdown, those guys need a structure on how they can survive.
Sure.
Because if they can be locked without food, the next thing is they can eat those who have food. So I think on that money, I really don't know how. I'm also waiting to see how the artists can come and
you're lost of words,
get their money and entertain us.
There's a school of thought. That because this announcement came just at the backdrop of Mutai Kagwe calling on the youth of this country to rise and to the occasion, and also participate and use their creativity on social media to try and create awareness and curb. And there was a backlash to the minister, telling him that you only call on us youth when you want us to do something, and when we want jobs, when we ask for this and that, you don't give us. Someone was saying this is maybe a way of the president trying to reach out to the youth and tell them, hey, vijana ndio hii 1,100, we're also thinking about young people. Did it actually? Can that work? I mean, if that's a PR stunt, did it work? Or
actually, the CS called upon the youth, just like any other country. So I think he was telling the youth, let us be ready, because at the end of the day, it will be us who will come out in case of a lockdown, in case the situation worsen. Let us come out, volunteer, give out, give out awareness about this disease.
Sure.
But again, there was an issue that why are you now remembering us after all that time? Even there was the social media was flooded by some tweets on the appointments that the government, the president made previously, especially on old people being given to aid the parastatals.
Yes.
So I think it is a kind of a two-way thing. One, the CS was it was like telling the young people, this country is your country.
Yeah.
Come help this country. You've seen the CS to the CAS to the Ministry of Health. She's a young lady, so she's one person who is representing the youth there. It shows that the youth are ready. So for him, it was like, come out, let us help our people. Now that the youth have gone to Mashinani, they are there. So they can coordinate with other groups, help the Red Cross in case of any worst moment. Like you have seen what is happening in the US, the military are the ones distributing food. So it was just calling. But on the other side, it came at the wrong time.
Sure.
Whereby the youth for a long time, they feel like, they have been left behind, and a lot has been going on, and they have not been discussing matters. They have not been being represented on the table. So I think it came the wrong time. But on the side of the CS, it was just making a request, an humble request that, let us be ready for this country as the young people, because we make the majority.
So is it time, Abdi, then for young people in this country to, come alive to the fact that, desperate times call for desperate measures, and also there are times where we just have to swallow our pride and just put the country first and our interests later?
Actually, Timothy, this is the time, because I'm telling you, if the entire thing gets at its worst moment, the most affected people will be youth. Let me just tell you that,
yes,
because they make the majority. And if we say, let us give the entire ball to the government to roll it, it will be a problem, because youth, they remain to be the leaders of today and tomorrow. We have to come clearly. And the good part is that currently they're in Mashinani, and they can take part. They can mobilize with the chiefs to make sure that they make sure that they fumigate they do fumigations in all the markets around and everywhere, because they're the ones who have the knowledge. In fact, if an ordinary person can be trained about the measures, it can take time to learn. But if a learned person who is a university student or a youth can be taken through this exercise, it will be easy for him to learn, and it will be easy for him to make sure that he uses the skills to help the other people. So it is the right time. It is the right time. I'm calling upon my fellow youth. It is the right time. This country is our country, and let us follow the government directives to make sure that we unite. Actually, okay, previously there are some wrongs that were done against the youth, but it is not the right time to say, we will not cooperate, we will not do this. It is not the right time. This is the time that we are at war. We are at war with an enemy that we cannot see. So it is time to come clearly to support the government on that. Thank you.
Sure, Abdi. And you mentioned something as we were having a discussion yesterday evening. You told me about an activity that you guys had, engaged yourselves in Turkana County. Maybe you want to share that a little bit with us?
Sure. In Turkana County, I'm very happy that that is one of the counties that is the northern Kenya, and me being one of the youth that are coming from there, I'm very happy on how the county government is really doing the coordination. There's a lot of awareness on the vernacular language to make sure that the locals understand what is going on. I think even there's a lot of it's a kind of the department, especially on the disaster management and response, is ready. And I want to congratulate the two MPs, especially MP for Turkana East, who happen to be my MP, for the good work that is coordinating to make sure that things are in order. I also want to congratulate the Turkana Central MP, Honorable Honorable Lodepe. He's really, also the other time he was giving food at Lodwa, especially on the slums in Lodwar. So there is a full coordination. But again, we are just not prepared like any other place. Depending on, there is also an issue of counties. This is the time that most counties have been, we can see that a little has been done, especially on the health sector.
Yes.
The counties, not only Turkana, but all the counties. The other time, the chairman of the Council of Governors, Oshimio Oparanya, the governor of Kakamega, he said, 22 counties don't have even ICU places. So you can imagine we are on the second term of devolution, and such things are happening. So they are shocking things, and I think if inshallah, if the pandemic ends, we have to sit down as a country and ask ourselves, what have we been doing, especially on the county, like the money that we have been giving them, because we expect at this time, with the money that the national government has been giving to the county governments, every county has an equipped hospital, with even like we can have ICU places, facilities with like even 100 beds. So I'm shocked that some counties, but it is an eye opener. I think it is something that as a Kenyans, it is a discussion that we are supposed to have.
And there is also, maybe before we end, there is also a discussion that is going on in the international, in the global community. But then before I touch on that, you mentioned something about, health facilities. Right now we are having discussions like we saw yesterday, Machakos County Governor Alfred Mutua announcing that he will give 20, 10 and 5,000 respectively to different levels of job groups for health workers in his county. Mombasa County also came out, Ali Hassan Joe also, some incentives for health workers in the county. Is this a good thing? And does this create also a morale for the health workers who are exposing themselves, and if I may use the words of the health CS Mutai Kagwe himself, that they are on our first line of defense against this enemy that is unseen?
I think this is the time that we have seen some governors coming out, and we have seen some governors, disappearing. We don't know where they are, and the suffering is all over.
Sure.
Because it is not only Mombasa County that is having. In fact, Nairobi County has more victims than Mombasa County.
But we don't have a governor, do we?
But Nairobi is a metropolitan city currently. Yes. Okay, for Governor Joho, I think Governor Joho is really doing a lot of things, and you can see he has really come out very clearly. Sure. The other time he was making sanitizing spray booth around Likoni Ferry. The other time he was giving money to one of the people that to one of the mom that was seen wearing a plastic as a mask. So I think the governor is currently moving so fast, and you can see the coordination. The county commissioner is really coordinating with the entire team. Yeah. So this is the time we can see people who can work, and the rest of the politicians who are kind of now, it is time to get quarantine and enjoy with your family. But as a leader, history matters. History matters. You can see the social media is being flooded with a lot of emotions, because Kenyans are wondering. Everyone is asking, "Where is my governor? Where is my governor?" Sure. So it is a high time that we want the politicians to come out, especially leaders. And I can always go back to the issue of the parliament and the Senate coming and making some laws, because Timothy, the issue of distributing food to slums branded the names of politicians, it cannot sustain this country. It cannot.
Sure.
You can give it today, but what about tomorrow? In case of a lockdown of 3 months, of 2 months, what will happen? Because if the spread will continue, definitely the government has to do something.
Yes.
And we are at the preliminary stages of it. It has to start as a curfew, goes to some counties being locked. So I think we have to make laws whereby now the issue of rent to be suspended, the issue of tax to be suspended. Now the issue of distribution of food to the slums people, like there must be laws to make sure that because of accountability, accountability is good. Kenyans want to see how their money is being used, because at the end of the day, I know it will come to a point whereby the entire pandemic will end, but accountability also matters on how we handle all these issues, because this is the time so many counties will make sure that they pump a lot of money to the disaster management, and that money will not even reach the common mwananchi. It it will not do anything on the ground. That money will go somewhere. So I think the issue of accountability also and transparency must come very clear. And it is time for leaders to stand for their people. And the only way they can stand for their people is the parliament and the Senate to come back to the house business and to transact the house business even for a day, to come up with laws on how this money can be used. Yeah.
Sure, Abdi. And now, finally, the issue that I wanted to also raise. We are talking about Kenya's preparedness, but also we are looking at the entire continent. There has been a conversation that has been going on the global level where there has been doubt whether Africa is actually ready to handle this. And there also is a social media campaign that is going on, a petition that actually people are being asked to sign, that there is, suspicion that Africa is going to be used as, a testing ground for a vaccine. And, this has not augured well with many Africans. And also, besides that, something that I think maybe you're aware of this, but something I would also like to get your opinion on, the leader or the Secretary General of the World Health Organization receiving, racist comments from world leaders, some of them presidents of, leading countries. Your opinion on that? Africa's preparedness, Africa being used as a testing ground for a new vaccine, and racist, comments being directed towards the Secretary General of the World Health Organization.
Okay, thank you. Let me talk about how if Africa is prepared. Africa is not prepared because the other time I was hearing that a country like Somalia, part of Somalia, there was a war between militia and the government. So you can imagine at the time the world is facing an enemy, a pandemic. Then some parts of this world, they have there are fights.
People are still holding guns in their hands.
In Kenya, in Kenya alone, we had issues in Transmara the other time about the border issue. So you can there is a big issue. The world is currently focusing on pandemic, especially the Western countries. But in Africa, half of African countries are countries that are not stable. Talk of Congo, talk of Liberia, talk of Sudan, talk of so many countries. There is a lot of instability. So that means, and there's also the issue of poverty. Talk of the issue of social distance. In slums like Kibera and the slums in other African countries, that one is not applicable. It cannot happen. Sure. So that shows the entire thing about Africa not being prepared. Then talk about even our health sector. This is a sector that even before the pandemic, it was a sector that had problems because whenever we had an outbreak of talk of cholera, talk of malaria, which is one of the most affecting African countries. Every time we had such issues, we had a lot of death, a lot of issues. So Africa generally is not prepared, but I'm very happy on what African leaders are trying, especially on locking up on the movements and the issue, because it is believed that this disease came from Asia. So I'm very happy on the measures. So I think so far they are trying, but we were not prepared. But again, this is an enemy that we cannot see. So we have to face it the way it is. It is still not, I can say still it is time that we can mobilize ourselves as a continent. But generally, we are not prepared. But we are hoping that the measures that the government is putting, every government in Africa is putting in place, that they are good measures. Okay, let me talk about the comment that came from two doctors. I think in France, they are having a conversation about how they can test their certain drug in Africa. That was very unfortunate. And Africa is not a laboratory to test. We are not specimen. We are human beings.
We are humans, like any other human beings.
We are humans just like them. And I think it is very unfortunate that such things can come from doctors, especially at this time that we are facing a pandemic as a globe. So it is very unfortunate. And I'm very sure when the entire thing about coronavirus ends, I think those two doctors must be brought to justice, because if we allow such reckless talks to continue, I think it will be a big issue. Then also, let me just congratulate the the General Secretary of World Health Organization, is really doing a good job. I know there is a lot of pressure on his side also. You can see he's always briefing the world in Al Jazeera. There is a lot of pressure. But again, there is this narrative, Africans, they're not capable. But I'm telling the United Nations and all those, the Western countries, now that they're the ones who finance the World Health Organization and stuff, when they were appointing these gentlemen, where were they? Like, why did they appoint him at the first place? It means that this guy is up to their task. Africa person, like, talk about the United Nations. For some time, it has been led by so great people, African people. Talk of Kofi Annan. Talk of even the other United Nations agencies, WFP.
Yes.
The most directors and the people who are doing good are Africans, the most performing people. So we are just equal. It's only the issue of our skin. And even the front, the other time I saw the 4 doctors that died in UK, who were in the front line, were Africans from Sudan. Yes, so they died because of making sure that they helped the general public of the UK. So, and I'm very sure it is not a narrative that is being supported by the entire Western countries. It is just a racism from few people, and it has to be condemned with all possible terms. That is bad. Africa is a continent that is known. Is a continent that has a good population. Is a continent that is growing, and we are not specimen, and we are not a laboratory to be tested with a drug that we don't know even if it will heal the coronavirus.
Well, indeed, and I would like also to agree with you on that Africans are not specimen. Africans are humans like any other humans, but not to mention or not to forget that, some of, the great leaders who at the United Nations itself, talk about UNICTAD, which is being headed by our very own Mukisa Kitui. Our current one of the CSs, Amina Mohammed, was also once a leader in the UN, and they showed quite, good leadership in their capacity. But I would also like to applaud a country like South Korea, very small country, but it's leading in many ways. Right now, as we speak, South Korea researchers have proved that the effectiveness of blood plasma treatment on coronavirus patients, and doctors in Seoul have actually administered plasma therapy on 2 elderly patients. That's a 67-year-old woman and a 71-year-old man. And I think this is the direction that the world should be taking, and learning or benchmarking from a small country like South Korea, which actually its system of drive-through testing and walk-through testing is now being replicated even in a country like America and Japan. Your final comments on the way forward in this whole situation, Abdi, as we finish.
My final comment, Timothy, is that let us, like we as Kenyans, let us have a culture of following what we have been told by the government. And you have seen, coronavirus does not have any cure at all.
Yes.
You have seen big countries straining. As we talk, even there is like all the morgues are full.
Sure.
People are being told to remain with their dead family bodies at home. So you can imagine what is happening in the world. And if such situation happens here, God forbid, then we are in the wrong place. And I can relate our recklessness with what happened in Italy. The reason why Italy was hit hard is because people never cared. People were in clubs. The clubs were full. They thought, this thing is an issue. At a point, there was a narrative, it is affecting the elderly people. So I think the entire thing is to make sure that we follow the government directive, we sanitize, we wash our hands, we make sure that we follow the social distancing issue, make sure that everyone, like it is a full coordination. We have to coordinate as a country. We have to come together, mobilize the resources and face this enemy together. And our leaders should lead from the front. I'm very happy on the central bank, how they have given the government money to run the project. I'm very happy on the DPP making sure that he has given us whatever he has. I'm also calling upon on other government agencies, on other corporations and governmental organizations to make sure that they're supporting the government on this. I know that if a lockdown comes, it means we have to feed people in slums, and any other person, because nobody has a store of food that is home. So if a lockdown comes, it needs a very a well-structured thing to make sure that we reach our people. So the coordination in the counties, I want to tell also the administrative bodies in the counties, sometimes this thing does not need any threats. I have seen some commissioners issuing more threats than educating the people. So let us take this thing on the awareness angle, on a way that we have to reach people and tell people things in a good way. It is not time to make sure that we complicate the entire thing. We are not at war within, we are not at war in ourselves as Kenyans. We are at war with an enemy that we cannot see. So the entire thing is a coordination that we are really calling upon. And so far, I'm very happy on the coordinations. Kenyans are really helping each other. The other time you saw one Kenyan telling his tenants, do not pay rent for the 3 months. That is the way we want to move as a country. For the young people, let us stand on this. Let us make sure that we come together, give awareness to our elderly people. Let us let the government equip the hospitals, especially in the regions and in the counties, and also let the county governments come clear on the entire coordination, because as we talk, some governors have really gone we don't know where they are. When
they've disappeared.
Others are leading from the front. Yes, they have disappeared. So you cannot get disappeared or get quarantined or get away from the people who elected you. It is the time they need you. So I think let us follow the government directives. Let us do the necessary things. Let us, every Kenyan has to try and do what he can to make sure that we win this war.
All right, thank you. And also maybe just to add on to what Abdi is saying there, recently also we saw the Vihiga Governor Wilbur Tichilo actually allocate some 77 million shillings, Kenya shillings, from the supplementary budget to just try and cushion the situation in the county, sanitizers, soap, and so on and so forth. And I believe that if our leaders, especially in the devolved units, also engage themselves in making sure that they complement what the national government is doing, because there's a lot of strain, Abdi, there's a lot of strain from the government, and as the CAS also mentioned the other day, more is still to come, because we are looking at about 5 by mid this month and at least 10,000 by the end of April cases that are confirmed. And the most difficult part and the most unfortunate bit about the coronavirus is, even in these developed countries, when they talk about, when they talk about 8,000, when they talk about 20,000 cases, they're not just, those are cases that have been, tested, but then there are those which are not tested, which I really do hope that as Kenyans we don't reach that serious bit. Well, Abdi, thank you very much.
Also, Timothy, I wanted to add something, especially on Kenyans on quarantine.
Yes.
Okay, the issue of quarantine, it is not a punishment. It is not a punishment. Actually, it is one of the measures that, you have come from outside the country and you have been told to quarantine yourself. So it is something, it is good for you. It is good for the family that you are to visit, your kids, your wife, and your relatives. So it is not a punishment. I have seen most Kenyans complaining about the quarantine thing. It is a mandatory thing, That is how some countries are kind of now. China is one of the measures that China used it in winning against coronavirus. So nobody is being punished. Let us just follow what the government is saying.
Sure.
The government cannot be accurate, but at the end of the day, let us give the government our opinions on whatever is going. So Kenyans on quarantine, it is because of your well-being.
Yes.
It is not a punishment, so that you can also know your status, and also if you are positive, so that you cannot interact with the rest of the people. So it is one way of curbing the entire situation.
Yeah, sure, Abdi. And I think quite a point that you've made there, which I believe that many Kenyans also need to just try and listen to, because looking at the situation, and I'm trying to let go, but there's one viewer here who is actually raising a concern. He's saying he's de la Rio de Outlaws. You know, I believe you know the Outlaws. Say hello to Isma from Kinyozi 001. I think that's a buddy who is saying hi. Thank you very much, Ismail. I think we're ending on a very beautiful note where your buddies are also checking you out and are saying hi. And that was Abdi, my guest today, Ismail H. Abdi, the Secretary General of the Kenya Private University Students Association, who is also the current president of the Students' Union at the Mount Kenya University Parklands Law Campus. And we're really grateful for finding time and also for joining us this morning. Well, viewer, we have come to the end of our program this morning. I believe that you still have more questions, suggestions, or opinion. You can still send that using our hashtag GBS Morning Extra. Our Twitter handle is @KenyaGBS, and our SMS line is 21144. Thank you very much, Abdi, for sparing time this morning.
Thank you very much, Timothy, for hosting me.
I do hope that we find time also again next week, and I believe
Inshallah.
that Inshallah.
Inshallah, Timothy.
Thank you
very much.
Have a good day. Yeah, viewer. Thank you.
And have a good day too.
Thank you. Now, viewer, we have come to the end of our program. Let's see you again tomorrow, same time, same place, God willing. Bye-bye for now.